got a great lineup for you today. We have Mr. Elliot Richardson. He's the founder and CEO of the Small Business Advocacy Group Council, an organization that's laser focused on improving the economic environment for small businesses here within the state of Illinois. We're also going to be joined by Dr. William Towns, the executive director of Benefit Chicago. Benefit Chicago has announced a $5 million investment in self-help ventures to fund entrepreneurs, small businesses, and not-for-profits on Chicago's west and south side. So I want you guys to sit, relax, let yourself go, and let's listen to the Urban Business Roundtable. Say good morning to everybody following me on social media. Rodney Burdine from Atlanta. Good morning. Kelvin Randall, good morning to you. Before we get into the proceedings, I want to say thank you, God, for all that you do. I want to just say, man, thank you again for my flaws. You know, people always got the guys in the studio and the lovely young lady. What's up, Mighty Titus?
Good morning, Curtis. How you doing?
I'm all good, man. People always talk about everybody's flaws. Everybody, you know, they always point out what you did wrong, man. People spend so much time, you know, kind of beating themselves up about their own mistakes and being so worried about what other people think of them, man. But truth is, and I believe this, all things work together for the good, not just the bad things, but not just the good things, but also the bad things. I think it's an intelligent design that's put together, and that ultimately God has the ultimate blueprint and sees the whole end result. And so that means that even the things that appear to be a hiccup in our individual lives is just an intelligent part of the process to get to the end result. So shout out to everybody that has to, you know, go through something, take it as a badge of honor, and keep on moving. I want to say good morning to my team that makes up the Curtis R. Mundy Insurance Agency, located in Hazel Crest, Illinois. Call my office at 708-647-1005 to schedule your free insurance and financial review and to get your small business house in order. Hey, Titus, no Sonia Levon today. No Sonia Levon. Sonia Levon is our producer. She had a death in the family, so we want to wish our condolences to Sonia and her entire family. The Urban Business Roundtable relaunch day party happened last week. Great time at the Bureau Bar, UIC location. We had a room full of entrepreneurs and small business owners getting together, and it was great. You know, I'm always my worst critic. You know, we had a lot of RSVPs. Maybe about a third of the people came out. I thought it was a great event, nevertheless. It was the quality of the individuals. And as I talked with my guests later on in the show, you know, they're always trying to connect the dots and trying to see how you can get the entrepreneurs together. And networking is a very important thing. You know, even with doing this show, I meet different people. I didn't know that my guests did exactly what they do. And so I'm eager to try to figure out how we can connect the dots to push this conversation about entrepreneurship and small business development forward. But the show, I mean, the overall ticket or the overall event was great. Again, a lot of great quality individuals. It won't be the last time we'll do it. So I encourage you guys, don't beat yourself up. Come on out to the next one. You can go to my YouTube page, Curtis R. Monday, and catch the last episodes of the Urban Business Roundtable and even the highlight video that Troy did for the event. And so check it out. We really need you guys to subscribe to that YouTube page, Curtis R. Monday. Go out there. We're putting together a lot of content. A lot of content to help you get your financial house in order. A lot of content to help you get your small business developed. You know, individuals who might miss our show this morning, and my guests are going to have some great information, and they may not be able to catch the show, but you can always go back out on the YouTube channel and watch it over and over again repeatedly. We had a guy on the show last week from Silver Enterprises talking about the $2.1 billion cannabis industry and how how Illinois is going to approve some 75 retail licenses, and everyone, you know, is interested in that. And so that's a great resource. So you go back, look at the show, get his information, and figure it out how to get back on there. You know, we had a lot of highs and lows this week. So we had the high of the event, the networking event. And I'm a football fan, and I'm a Patriots fan. And so I had the high of getting Antonio Brown. And I said, we're going 17-0, Brady and the boys. And I had the low yesterday, him getting cut. So I got to go back to my original statement. Antonio Brown's a new kind of fool. I don't know how you go from losing $30 million guaranteed, and then you go to the best team, and man, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Hey, but it wasn't all bad. I had a great time with my son this week, Chance. Chance Jordan. I call him Chance the Baby. That's his nickname, Chance the Baby. So I had to go to Bye Bye Baby, and I admit, I'm good with business. I'm good with finances. I know nothing about Bye Bye Baby. So I go in there to try to get a harness for him, right? And I didn't know the proper name of it, so I kept calling it a Jedi pack. Like think Empire Strikes Back with Luke Skywalker having Yoda on his back. Like as a kid, that was cool. He had Yoda on his back training. It was a Jedi pack. So I'm walking around Bye Bye Baby like, yo, I need a Jedi pack. And they're like, what the hell are you talking about? A Jedi pack, something to carry my son, like Yoda, stop. And so I'm showing them pictures like, oh, you need a baby harness. Baby harness. So they had a good laugh at my expense, but it wasn't all bad though. I was able to solidify Chance's college education yesterday. So you guys like, how do you do that? I actually paid for he's only 9 months. So I paid for his whole college education yesterday. And we were able to do that because I bought him a piece of property. I bought him a building, right? And so the building has, the purchase, it probably has about $100,000+ in equity in it. And at a certain point in time, we'll refinance and take that out. But the residual income you get from this building will go into his 529 college plan and build it over time. And so you guys, again, that's one of the powers of real estate. That's one of the powers of small business ownership, and entrepreneurship, learning different tactics and strategies to help build wealth within your household. And so I'm excited about what we're going to do with that. Titus, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to have the patient investor report with Aerial Capital Management. And then also we get into our conversation with our two guests today here on the Urban Business Roundtables. Keep it locked here, WBON 1690 AM. Having a spirited conversation with some of my guests, sharing they give me the wise words of wisdom from experienced dads. Coming up shortly, we're going to be joined by, again, Dr. William Towns, the Executive Director of Benefit Chicago. And also, we're going to be joined by our other guest, Mr. Elliot Richardson, founder and CEO of the Small Business Advocacy Council. Right now, we're going to go to the Patient Investor Report presented by Aerial Investments. Up next is our man, Kwa.
It's Kwa, your patient investor from Aerial Investments. Aerial's number to know is 10%. That's how much you might be penalized if you pull money from your 401k before you reach the age of 59 and a half. And it can be tempting to pull from your retirement fund, especially if you're changing jobs. This is typically when you're given several choices. Option 1, you can move your 401k into your next employer's plan. Option 2, you can roll it over into an IRA at an investment firm of your own choice. Or option 3, you can cash it out. The problem is, cashing out can be quite painful. First of all, you have the 10% penalty. Then, you have to consider taxes. You may be responsible for both federal taxes as well as state taxes. And by the time you add everything up, you can lose a significant chunk of your hard-earned dollars. Equally problematic is the long-term damage to your retirement savings. Many people have every intention of catching back up. But the truth is, it's hard to do once you cash out. And when you factor in the potential loss of being out of the stock market for any extended time, the problem is compounded even further. Your retirement money is sacred. Protect it and nourish it so it can be there for you in your golden years. For more tips, visit aerialinvestments.com. And remember, slow and steady wins the race.
Thanks for that great information. That's my man Kwa from Aerial Investments with the Patient Investor Report. I want to welcome my first guest. He's the Executive Director of Benefit Chicago. Benefit Chicago has announced a $5 million investment in self-help ventures to fund and to support entrepreneurs, small businesses, and not-for-profits in Chicago's west and south sides. With Benefit Chicago's assistance, this community development financial institution will invest in a strategic pipeline of loans that will ensure an influx of capital to a myriad of Chicago-based projects, including local restaurants and non-for-profits. I want to say good morning to my guest, my first guest, Dr. William Towns. Good morning to you, Dr. Towns.
Good morning, Chris. How are you?
I can't complain. Thanks for all your sage wisdom that you and Elliot have been giving me about fatherhood. And so Tell us a little bit about Benefit Chicago. How long has it been around, and what was the motivation for the initiative?
Yeah. Thank you again. Thank you for having me on the show. Benefit Chicago is an organization that has been around for 3 years, and we were sort of formed on the premise of trying to figure out how do we get additional capital into our communities,
Okay.
right? That we know in our neighborhoods, our south and west sides, particularly in the city, that we have the business ingenuity. The potential is there. But we know for a number of reasons there's a lack of capital inflow into some of our businesses in our neighborhoods.
Right.
So the first thing we're trying to figure out is how do we sort of get patient, flexible capital into these neighborhoods and into these businesses so that they can grow, right? And our theory is if they get the capital and can grow, we know our local small entrepreneurs hire people locally, they invest in the community and those sorts of things. We're excited about that. The second thing was sort of, okay, where is the capital going to come from, right? Where are we going to sort of get this capital? And this is at the same time that there was a lot of interest in how can we invest locally. Like how can individual investors in the city who believe in these businesses put capital at work in these businesses? So this isn't just how do we give them a grant. This is how can we actually make an investment in the business. And so this sort of social impact movement was sort of thriving at the same time we were figuring out how can we sort of get this capital in. So Benefit Chicago was born really as this sort of conduit between the businesses that need the patient, flexible capital and individuals who are interested in investing in those businesses. And so we provide the screening and due diligence and things to ensure that those investments are as sound as possible and really, again, act as the conduit between those two parties. We are formed by the Chicago Community Trust, the MacArthur Foundation, and Calvert Impact Capital. So we've got backing by two of the largest foundations and trusts in Chicago.
Yeah.
And we have been fortunate enough through their efforts and efforts that I have led to date to have raised $97 million that we're putting to work in the Chicagoland region.
Sure. So let me ask this question. You know, in the 80s, I can remember where the Reagan administration made a concerted effort to fight against the war on drugs. They identified drugs as a problem, and so they put a lot of efforts and man hours to combat the war on drugs. In entrepreneurship, we always say access to capital is one of our major fronts that we fight, right? We all know that as a small business, if you don't have access to capital, you can't grow, you can't market, you can't do a lot of things to sustain your business. We all know this,
right.
But yet and still, access to capital continues to be a very, very difficult hurdle for most small businesses to overcome. What's different about this program? Because we hear, I know everyone says, okay, it's a big deal. We need to get the money to the entrepreneurs, but the end result still seems to be a disconnect between those entrepreneurs and small businesses that need the money and the individuals or the gatekeepers that have the money. And so, tell us what types of individuals are eligible to participate in this program.
So we are I think we are trying to be a part of the solution,
Sure.
right? So we are not. I'm not one to think that I'm going to solve this problem sort of on my own. Part of what I'm trying to do is shed some light to others to show that we can make investments in these communities and hope that others then will follow as we sort of go on. So I'm really, in a sense, hopefully trying to work my way out of a job, that we sort of get the capital flowing in such a way that banks and other traditional investors start to come into these markets and say, hey, you can actually invest in brown and black folks. They actually know what they're doing and doing businesses, and we can sort of change that. So that's just one of the premises. What we are trying to do is really to sort of fill the gap where the traditional investors and lenders have a space where they work well. We don't want to sort of overshadow that. We're in between where those loans don't work. We come in and try to make them work. So I often talk about we're not trying to shine light where there's no darkness, but really work sort of in the gaps. And so we have, as examples, in some cases, worked with other lenders where the business needed maybe, say, a $2 million investment. The bank could only get up to $1.5 million or $1 million. We're coming in with that additional capital to make those investments to get the deal to actually work.
Gotcha.
And so our minimum investment is $500,000. We want businesses that have been in existence for at least 3 years, have some financials we could review and those sorts of things. And then the rest is really sort of takes place in the negotiation with that particular business. We don't have a set format. We don't have a set distribution of capital. We really work in the 16 or so loans we've made. Each one has been very different.
Sure.
And so we really try to customize it in a way to sort of get it in. We have been incredibly successful, but we also haven't been able to fund everything.
Yeah.
And so we know there are some challenges there. But some businesses have seen the capital flow. And in the case of self-help ventures, we're working through an intermediary where we can provide them this capital through this $5 million investment, and then they can go out through their networks and make investments in the local businesses and connections that they have.
Because that was going to be my question. Like, how do you balance the business discipline that's associated with lending, making sure you're lending to good, solid projects, with the reality that every small business owner or entrepreneur may not be in a position to qualify for those, to meet those credentials or meet those qualifications. So if I got you right, your program is not so much intended for the person listening to my show right now who hasn't even gotten a business. You want someone that's actually been in the game a little bit.
A little bit, right.
Okay.
That's correct. And we'll work through other intermediaries for that sort of startup seed capital types of investments that we know our community lacks, right? We can't call our uncle or aunt and get $100,000 to sort of buy a house to college from.
Right.
But we know together we can sort of pull some things to work. And I do want to say one thing. The way that our capital comes in that we lend is through a community note. So individuals can go on our website and invest with as little as $20 in what we call a Chicago benefit note. We are pooling that capital together, and that's the capital that we're lending.
Okay.
And so it's on one side, it's getting capital to our small entrepreneurs. On the other side, it's teaching people about investing, right? That there's an opportunity for you to get an investment in something happening in your community, that we're not sort of sitting back and waiting for someone to come in and do some stuff, that we actually have some power on our own. I've often said, the hand that we need is often at the end of our own arm. And how do we sort of start to take control of some of the destiny of our communities? And it's through these types of investments that we're able to get capital into these businesses and let them do what they do. So
3 years in business, are there any gross revenue requirements?
No, we look at each of these businesses individually. We've invested in a small 3-person urban farm as well as sort of larger organizations like a DL3 Realty that's doing stuff in Inglewood and Woodlawn and so forth.
What about the location of the business? They got to be located in the Chicagoland area?
They need to be in the Chicagoland area, so we're a 7-county investor, and the impact needs to be place-based.
Okay.
So we really want the impact of the business to be locally here. We're not necessarily interested in a business that's located here, but all the jobs are overseas, as an example, or out of state. We want them to really be place-based.
Got it. What types of fields? You said you've done, 16 loans thus far?
Yes, roughly.
Characteristics, is there an overwhelming characteristic of the type of businesses that are proven to be successful? Is it restaurants? Is it hair care products? What is it?
So one, we're very early on at 3 years,
Sure.
right? And you know, as a sort of business expert, to see the success or impact is a long-term view.
Right.
And so that's sort of the patientness of our capital. We have some investments that go out as far as 7-10 years, right? So we know it takes some time to sort of build the businesses. We have a wide variety of investments. We look for 3 main things. One, organizations that are creating jobs. We know jobs are incredibly important in our community. We want to see the success and expansion of the entrepreneur and business owner, helping them grow assets, the real estate and other things that they need to grow their business. And then the third one is in this sort of human capital development. What type of training, certificate programs, things, how do we sort of get people jobs? How do we get people who are in jobs to ladder up? Entry level is nice, but how do we sort of get them to sort of move forward? And through that, we've seen a number of sort of investments with, Autonomy Works, which is an organization in Downers Grove that's doing marketing analytics with individuals who have autism, like sort of specialized. As I said, DL3 Realty or DL3 Advisors, Leon Walker, and his work to really expand food deserts and really try to eliminate that from our community, whether that was Inglewood Square, whether that's the Jewel Osco in Woodlawn, or his new venture in Morgan Park, where he's bringing 500 jobs in a partnership with Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Right.
Like, we want to empower him to be able to do more.
It's improving the community.
That's
absolutely.
right.
The capital you guys are giving, what form? Is it a loan or is it a line of credit?
It's a loan.
And
so we have explored, this notion of equity.
Right.
And how do we sort of get that? We're still in research mode to try to figure that out, because we have discovered debt is great, and there's a lot of sort of existing business that can access debt. it's the equity piece
Yeah.
that a lot of our businesses need, and we're really exploring that now to sort of figure out how do we help solve that problem.
Absolutely. The loan, what are the terms? Is it 5, 6? What's the tenure?
So we'll go out as far as 12 years now,
okay.
and it's individually sort of adjusted
Based
to
upon
the project. Risk, due diligence, those
Yeah.
sorts of things. And so sometimes someone might say, well, that interest rate isn't the best interest rate. And we say, okay, great, if you can get a lower rate, you should do that as a business person. But you probably won't get 10, 12 years.
No, that's that's the most idiotic. As a business owner, I don't care. I could care less about the rate. I just need access to the capital. Right. If you give me access to the capital, I can make the money to pay off the loan, and the rate is inconsequential to me at that point. I just want access to the capital. So I hear people say that all the time. Unless it's a payday loan. Forget the payday loan. I'm talking about legitimate business practices. On the tail end of the loan, if they need to continue the relationship, is there a reevaluation process to see how the relationship, is it a one-time stop, or can I continue to keep the ongoing relationship to get more capital?
It's an ongoing relationship, and in fact, we have had several people who we had an initial investment that we've extended that investment or increased the amount of the investment given the pace and success that they've shown very early on.
Sure.
And we are looking for minority businesses, women-owned businesses. Those sorts of things are all what we're looking at, and whether that's Sweet Beginnings and Brenda Palms-Bomber in North Lawndale and the phenomenal work that she's doing and the success she's been able to leverage through our investments. Those are the kinds of things that we're doing. We want good social impact. We want sort of on-the-ground jobs and other sorts of benefits, and the financial return. Absolutely.
Dr. William Towns, give our listening audience information, who people may be interested in your program. Where can they find you?
Yeah, so if you're interested in learning more about Benefit Chicago, you can go to our website, www.benefitchicago.org.
Absolutely. Dr. William Towns, the Executive Director of Benefit Chicago. He's going to hang out here with us. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back on the other side, we're going to be joined by Mr. Elliot Richardson. He's the founder and CEO of the Small Business Advocacy Advisory Advisory. My mind is going all over the place. Advocacy Council. So keep it right here, locked here on the Urban Business Roundtable. Be sure to go out to I want to welcome my next guest. He's the president and co-founder of the Small Business Advocacy Council. The Small Business Advocacy Council is an organization laser focused on improving the economic environment for small businesses in the state of Illinois. The SBAC strives to empower the small business community by bringing business owners, professionals, and entrepreneurs together to speak with a unified and strong voice. I want to say good morning to my second guest here today on the Urban Business Roundtable, Mr. Elliot Richardson.
Curtis, thank you so much for having me.
Awesome, Elliot. Awesome. Elliot, let's jump right into it. I had a chance to research and look at the work you're doing. Phenomenal work. Keep up the great work. I want to know this. Why do you consider small businesses such an important component of our nation's overall economic well-being?
Well, because the small business community is the engine that drives the economy. And you hear politicians talk about that a lot. You hear lots of people talk about that a lot. But unfortunately, the small business community is not always treated as the engine that drives the economy. And most of your listeners, many of your listeners, I'm sure, are employed by, own, or are supported by a small business or an entrepreneur throughout the city or the state. And, we formed the SBAC to bring people together, to bring all those small business owners together that don't have the time to lobby and to advocate and to speak with a strong and unified voice.
Sure. I mean, for a number of years on the air, I've always said that politics is nothing but the creation of law that covers or governs the distribution of our financial resources. As entrepreneurs, we spend a lot of time focusing on how to get access to capital, how to run our businesses, how to hire people. But no one ever really talks about advocacy. And we get so enthralled in our day-to-day operations, but we never think about those conversations, those laws, that fighting that needs to happen on the back end to create an environment where we can be successful as entrepreneurs and small businesses. Why was advocacy, in your opinion, such a big strategic piece in you guys' overall mission?
Well, because there was really, from our perspective, not a lot of people laser focused on the small business community. So, when you were dealing with things like access to capital, we formed coming right out of the recession, right? And I saw small business owners lose their lines of credit.
Sure.
And when you look at healthcare and the rising cost of healthcare for small businesses, when you look at some of the tax incentives and the way things are structured, they are absolutely, tailored towards larger companies. And we don't pit large versus small.
Right.
But small businesses should have the opportunity to compete on a level playing field. Yeah. And to do that, you have to actually draft laws. And when we started the organization, we had no experience in drafting laws, and we figured out how you do it. I mean, we lowered some of the highest LLC fees in the nation.
Wow.
It used to cost $500 to form an LLC. It's now $150 to form an LLC. It used to be $250 every year to renew your LLC. It's now $75. That came out of one of our members saying to us, do you know how much money I pay with my different LLCs every year? And that's actually a tax. So let's tackle that. And putting that on the forefront of the minds of legislators, bringing together different coalition partners from all over the state and saying, let's focus on empowering small businesses because they create the majority of the jobs.
Absolutely, absolutely. So to the small business owner, Elliot, that's in their day-to-day and they're trying to do the very best they can within their small business to keep the lights on and to keep producing, how do you get them to start to think about the advocacy piece? How do you get them to start thinking about that? Like I tell all entrepreneurs all the time that a lot of times we spend all our time working in the business and little or no time working on the business. I would consider the advocacy component as working on the business because it's critical. How do we get that into our DNA?
It's education and information. So one thing we did when we started the organization is we also combined that with a lot of different events. And the events commingled advocacy and networking and connecting. And we brought folks from all different parts of the economy, partners at law firms with solo entrepreneurs to talk about advocacy issues while at the same time making connections. And that was a really good recipe for bringing people together. And you know what's interesting when you're talking about networking, right? There's people that will come out to our events. We just had a town hall with the Orland Park Chamber of Commerce on the proposed graduated income tax, a nonpartisan, we are a nonpartisan organization, town hall where we were able to ask the Director of Revenue and state senator, and a mayor, and a state representative the questions that we all want to know. And the people that came out to that event were high-level business owners that were great to network with for entrepreneurs or people starting out their businesses. So we created events where we could educate people about these issues. Then you've got to galvanize support. And then, at the very beginning of your show, you talked about, how do we do things for our community through critical mass? You got to build that critical mass.
Absolutely. Now, your advocacy efforts touch on 3 geographic locations, Springfield, Illinois, here in Chicago, and also in Washington.
That's right.
What is the overall, in your opinion, what's the overall climate or environment in those 3 arenas as it pertains to small business and small business owners? What's their mood towards us?
Oh, we could talk about this for an hour. So I'm going to have to really be succinct here. Chicago has a relatively blank slate right now. A new environment with Mayor Lightfoot, taking the helm. Thus far, we've been excited about the work that she's done in various different ways. She participated in a town hall with us before she was elected. We're doing a lot of work on making it easier to hang a simple sign in the city of Chicago. Should you need city council approval to hang a sign in front of your shop, your State Farm shop, absolutely not. So, on the city level, I think there's a lot of things in terms of aldermanic prerogative, a lot of things that we can begin to tackle that will make it easier for small and local businesses in all neighborhoods in Chicago. On a state level, they got a lot done last session. Whether you like it or not, a lot happened, right? Now, unfortunately, we may see about a year of, rhetorical bomb throwing as it pertains to this graduated income tax. And small business owners want to see things get done. So I think the verdict's out in Springfield.
Right.
We all know what's going on in D.C. I mean, can you get any more partisan and toxic? We've got a bill, a bipartisan bill in D.C. that would allow small businesses to pay over $5,000 off of their employees' student debt on an annual basis, tax-free to the employee, and take a deduction on that. We are pushing that through with a hammer. That is good bipartisan policies that will allow small businesses to compete with large enterprises. This is a sort of good policy we need to get done despite the toxic, ridiculous environment in
Absolutely.
D.C.
Something like that is huge. It could be great with retention. As a small business owner is trying to recruit and retain talented individuals to work for me, it's difficult.
Absolutely.
That'll be a great retention, recruiting piece for me. And so, hey, hats off to you guys. You mentioned this proposed graduated income tax for Illinois. For those individuals who may not be aware of what that is, give us a snapshot of what the proposition is and how it works.
Well, here is the really good news. Everybody listening will have the opportunity to vote on the proposed graduated income tax. So right now, Illinois has a flat tax.
Right.
The only way to change it is a constitutional amendment, which will be on the ballot in November of 2020.
Right.
That was passed out of the legislature, right? So now voters have the opportunity to decide whether or not there should be a graduated income tax in Illinois, which is different people get taxed different rates on a state level, depending on the amount of income that they make, or not, whether or not a flat tax should remain in effect. There's also rates that were passed. Now, those are not on the constitutional amendment, but those rates essentially, and it's scaled up. But, what you'll hear politicians say a lot is anybody who makes, as a joint couple, under $250,000 will see their taxes reduced by a bit. And then after that, people will see their taxes increased, and we've got those rates on our website. And this is what the voters will have to decide.
So the flat tax rate right now in Illinois is like 4.95%, I think.
It's at 4.95, absolutely.
4.9, and then this graduated, it's like a progressive. They call it a progressive income tax scale. So it's not a blanket. It's like a ladder. So you have
That's right.
one segment here, and you tax at this rate, and then on the next portion, respect to income, you tax on that portion, et cetera. So the idea is to make the tax burden fair for the entire population. How do they envision this impacting the majority of citizens within the U.S. if the proposed change happens and you have the progressive tax implemented? Will we see the vast majority of individual taxes go up or go down?
Well, so in Illinois, if the graduated income tax is passed, the statistic that's used by Democrats right now is 97% of the population, taxpayers, will see some form of a decrease in their taxes. Now, you also hear a lot of numbers bantered about,
right.
And this is what's going to go on for the next year, essentially,
right.
Curtis. Once you hit $1 million, the whole thing is taxed at 7.99.
Yeah.
So an argument from Republicans is this is going to drive wealth out of the state. This is going to drive people out of the state, and you're going to lose that revenue.
Right.
The argument by Democrats is you got to be fair. Things have to be fair, and if you make more money, you should pay more money. We're having these graduated income tax town hall meetings.
Right.
We just had one in Orland Park. We're going to have one in Skokie. We're going to have them in the city where we're asking questions like, how is the money going to be spent?
Right.
Everybody are we really going to use it to pay down our pension debt? Are we really going to use it to pay down our bills? Because then some people that might not love the idea of a tax increase might be okay with it. How is it going to pertain, and you know this well from what you were talking about earlier, with property tax?
Absolutely.
Is there going to be real property tax relief if you're going to raise the graduated income tax? These are questions we want to hear from our legislators on. Nobody needs to yell at them, okay? I mean, they know how people who are for or against what they believe feel, but we need them to answer these questions for us.
Yeah, when I think about the conversation, it's real nuanced to me. On one end, as a citizen, I'm like, hey, you know what? You're going to reduce the taxes on 97% of the population, and that's a good thing. And I'm also thinking, like, well, damn, the other 3% got so much damn money that increase in that this gradual tax change will bring in added revenue to our state and help our terrible financial situation. But then the other flip side of it is this: as an entrepreneur, we're geared towards trying to build businesses and grow and make money. And so individuals or detractors of the change would say that you're penalizing individuals for making money. You're penalizing individuals for being creative and working hard and having a solid product. And as an entrepreneur, it's a catch-22 because, like, you know, you get into business to make money, and now you tell me if I make more money, I'm going to pay more taxes. On the same end, I can make the argument that if my client or consumer base, right, is paying lower taxes, and that's more money they can spend with me for my goods and services. So it's like,
Well, yeah, and you know, the problem is we're in such a hole with this pension debt. There's got to be a way out of it, and that's why I think there just needs to be a lot of explanation. The other thing is $250,000 for a couple the same in the North Shore or in the Gold Coast of Chicago as it is, you know, in Southern Illinois? You know, there's people, a married couple that makes that level who might say, you know what, I've got 3 or 4 kids. I don't know that I feel like I should be taxed more. I'm not saying that's right or that's wrong. We have to find a balance. We have to figure this out, and we have to do it without creating a circular firing squad in Illinois where our politicians are firing at one another, and all business is hearing is these guys can't get anything done.
Right.
And they don't want to grow, and people leave the state.
Right.
I mean, this is our economy. These are lives. These are small businesses. They've got to do it in some sort of reasoned, productive manner.
So one more time for individuals who may have missed it, our citizens will be able to vote on this proposed change in the general election coming in November, right?
November 2020.
Right.
And we're going to have tons of information out. It's I would say, you know, get educated so you can make a good vote.
And where can individuals locate your organization, learn more about what you guys are doing, be involved in the conversation?
SBACIL.org.
Okay, yeah. So, hey, great information. I mean, these are things and topics we need to be part of. And so I'll make sure that Mr. Richardson and I stay in contact together to keep on this ongoing dialogue. That advocacy component, man, is huge. It's huge. You just don't know. Like, you know, with all the mass shootings we see in America, most of us sit home and go, well, hell, why don't you just take the automatic weapons away from people? Well, you got some group called the NRA in the background, you know, fighting like cats and dogs and spending a lot of money to lobbying for the politicians to keep certain laws on the books to, you know, protect their interests. And so it's good that we have someone for the little guy, Elliot.
Thank you.
So, yeah, I appreciate you. Mr. Elliot Richardson, president and co-founder of the Small Business Advocacy Council. Man, great conversation with my guest today, Dr. William Towns, Executive Director of Benefit Chicago, and Elliot Richardson. Thank you guys both for joining us. Mighty Titus, time flies when you're having fun. When we get out of here, and I want to thank everyone for listening to this episode again of the Urban Business Roundtable presented to us by Ariel Investments. Be sure to go out to the YouTube channel. You'll be able to catch this interview with these two great gentlemen. We're going to try to figure out how we can keep the lines of communication open and to work further to make sure that our collective interests and the community we work in and serve is protected. I got to get out of here. I don't do this for my first name. I do this for my last name. Chance Jordan, I love you, son. And say what you want to about me, but always know that I did it my way. God bless you. Bye-bye.